This is a sample chapter from Fitton Books. Chapter 3. The long orange hull of the barge freighter moved 100 meters above the gray-brown hull's observation areas and lighted compartments. Ross, understanding his eventual destination, pondered the nebula, a remnant of an exploded star covering the skies above the distant planet. Ventures to the third sector away from the civilized galaxy were reserved for reconnaissance missions and scientific survey parties. Something must have gone wrong out there. A survey party might be in need of evacuation or supplies. Ross had never heard of the Nebula planet, nor did he fully understand the connotation. Because of security, the orders, according to the admirals, would come in 2 stages. The anticipation, combined with this insane silence order, frazzled his nerves. Crutch, I need to speak with Ebert. We're supposed to remain silent. Ross leaned against the cold window, talking with his security chief's reflection. Bullshit. He turned to Lindy. Lindy, what the hell is a nebula planet? Lindy grinned. A planet with a nebula. Funny. Why would there be a nebula gas? Where's the star? Why wasn't the planet destroyed in the explosion? I'll have to look at the reports, John. Planets don't orbit nebulas. My point exactly. Ross's clenched fist moved down the glass. Listen, I don't like not being told, and getting sealed orders when we're out there in the middle of nowhere isn't my idea of useful information. A multitude of antennas and red flashing lights were silhouetted against the spaceport's upper grid fence. The port cast an azure green glow over the blackened sky as the barge freighter crossed over dozens of various vessels of many shapes and sizes, cruising above the runways. Ross was drawn to the far end of the mothership, past the complex girder network to his own ship. As majestic as a Rondorian wafting bird with wide, blue-sculptured rear wings and a spherical command center, ESS-14 had a long, tapering body. It was anchored securely in the docking bay, but dozens of workships hovered around its brightened hull. At least 50 external technicians, tiny repair scooters, and maintenance shuttles readied the ship. The vessel was his for almost 5 years before the Antarian War, and although he had commanded other vessels, he had an odd attraction to this ship. Kuczynski brought the barge alongside the starboard sky pilot bays under the wingspan. Out of the portalight's glare, the ship returned to its usual light blue color. Only a few people gazed out the linear observation platforms above the bay doors. Ross thought he saw Jim Morris, one of his lead pilots, standing next to the sky pilot ships inside. As the barge nudged toward the airlock barrier, Ross turned to Kuczynski. Am I in charge yet? When we step aboard, sir. Ross nodded and peered upward to the ship's wings, the underbelly extending back to the bay girders. Once they were safely inside the thick, fingered metal airlocks, and the inside pressure was equalized to that of the main ship, the barge doors opened. Ross followed Kuczynski quickly, boots echoing across the metal floor. Kuczynski spoke to Polonis, and the ship's computer performed a quick scan on everyone before they officially entered ESS-14. Kuczynski folded his arms as he stood before the viewer. What's the matter, Polonis? You in a bad mood today? No, sir, said Polonis. Scans are complete. Feel free to come aboard, gentlemen. The internal bay doors rumbled, and in the brighter light, Ross shielded his eyes. Crew members saluted as he stepped inside the ship, and then he turned to Kuczynski. Now I'm officially aboard. Just following Admiral Ebert's orders, said Kuczynski. Ross looked around the spacious sky pilot bays. 15 sky pilot ships, still singed from the battle, were lined in a long row across this area that experienced so much activity during the war. No one seemed overly concerned about the mission. Even Jim Morris, who had a level 1 security clearance, casually talked with some of his sky pilot sector maintenance men about 12 meters away. John, said Polonis. Ross turned toward the speaker. I've been told by Admiral Ebert to convene an immediate meeting with all personnel with a level 1 clearance. Okay, 1 hour in the locus. Norm Gannon, one of Ross's personal aides, moved out of the propulsion room corridor. Commander, I was just informed by Polonis that you were returning to the ship and that we are getting underway. Oh, that's correct, Norm. What do you need, sir? This uniform in my cabin. I'm going to shower and be at a locust meeting in an hour. Yes, sir, I'll get on it right away. Gannon headed back toward the propulsion room. Polonus, inform all other Level 1 people. Should we restrict knowledge of the meeting? Asked the computer. For what? Asked Lindy from the side. No one's going anywhere. I didn't know you were commanding this vessel, Mr. Lindsay, replied the computer. I think we need some reconstructive surgery on the Polonus links in this vessel, said Lindy, moving behind Gannon. I'm going to my cabin, John. Commander, the restriction problem? Don't worry about it, Polonus. When will we have all personnel aboard the ship? Within the hour. People have been ordered back all day, said Polonus. We leave port in 3 hours and 10 minutes. Ross nodded his head. Lindy moved into the sloping propulsion corridor and walked toward the clear conveyor tubes beyond. Jim Morris followed. Ross knew what the next question would be. Level 1 meeting? Morris whispered, squinting his dark eyes. We're getting underway in approximately 3 hours, Jim. I want your people on standby. What's going on, Commander? You'll find out as much as they want to tell us at the Locust meeting. I'll see you. Nancy Burke, winded and fatigued, rounded a small shuttle inside the bay doors. She managed a half smile. Aren't you going to welcome me aboard, Commander? Nancy, he said, shaking his head, you did get clearance. Right here. She lifted 2 silver security discs out of her pack and then held her hand over her droopy eyes. Ross tried to steady her. Are you all right, Nancy? She straightened and nodded her head. I'm all right, and I do have clearance. I'm officially assigned to ESS-14 for the duration of this mission. You can push the disk into an activation slot. Not necessary. Miss Burke does have access, John. I have to wonder why they sent a viewer bender on a mission like this, she asked, grinning. Listen, Commander, believe me, this mission is going to require someone here to bend it. Then you best brief me. Ross liked her, and having her aboard would make an otherwise long and dull voyage interesting. I know what you know. You have connections, my friend, said Ross. I do. Her eyelids still hung heavy. Nancy, you're all right in a pig's ass. Ross steadied her again. I just need to rest for a second and go to my cabin. Sure. Ross walked over and hit the button near an adjacent speaker. Polonus. Yes, sir. Polonus, I want S.R. Schaefer down here to escort Miss Nancy Burke to her cabin. Instituting command. Schaefer's name echoed throughout the bay and into the corridor. S.R. Schaefer to the Sky Pilot Bays. S.R. Schaefer to the Sky Pilot Bays. Thank you, Polonus, said Ross, looking back to Nancy. I'm having one of my aides, Melissa Schaefer, come down here. She'll bring you to your cabin. Cabin A16. You're right across the wingspan in the corner. 16 is more like a suite, Nancy. He did not know whether to steady her again. Most of the wing cabins are more like group barracks for the crew. I think I'll need to talk to the ship's physician. Who is it, Pfeiffer? When we were in the bar pit, you mentioned you couldn't have a Brumac because I will speak to the ship's doctor about that. Dr. Mike Pfeiffer. He saw the young Melissa Schaefer in her magenta uniform scurrying from the propulsion corridor. Yes, Commander, she said as she approached. Melissa, I'm assigning you as an aide to Miss Burke here on this voyage. Melissa smiled and looked at Nancy. Yes, sir. She's in cabin A16. Nancy, I have a level 1 meeting in less than an hour. If you wish a tour of the vessel after that meeting. It's very late, John. Perhaps tomorrow or maybe the next day. We have plenty of time, I think, from what I sense. You sense correctly. Time is the one thing we do have plenty of on this voyage. If you need me, contact my ship's Polonus. Thank you, John. Ross held her for a moment and started across the bay. And enjoy your meeting. Enjoy? A level 1 security meeting rarely brings enjoyment. And you can quote me on that. Ross continued down the corridor, but as her condition worsened, he had confidence that Pfeiffer would find answers.